The way I see it, our fates appear to be intertwined. In a land brimming with hollows, could that really be mere chance? So what do you say? Why not help one another on this lonely journey? We are amidst strange beings in a strange land. The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out. The very fabric wavers, and relations shift and obscure. There's no telling how much longer your world and mine will remain in contact. But use this to summon one another as spirits, cross the gaps between the worlds, and engage in jolly cooperation.
I've included these sound bites to kick things off for a reason. Now, the first game made a point with Knights of Lair, and through this dialogue, many players learned an important lesson about soapstones and what they could provide the online experience. His positivity also left an impression on players, and they took on a sense of camaraderie as summons in the first game that's kinda lasted with the whole series. Maybe it was because the first game was more impersonal with player interactivity, since group chat and passwords weren't a typical feature yet, and in-game actions were how we represented ourselves. But people like to help, and committing a summon sign is still the most common way to engage online players. I don't need to explain the benefits of using a soapstone too much, do I? I mean, besides just wanting to help, whatever souls you earn still help you, and you still get embers for beating a boss. But it's also a safe way for players to learn an area and practice, maybe even get the scoop on the road ahead if they're having trouble in their own game. Now, it's easy to be a White Phantom in Dark Souls 3. It's easier than ever. You simply have to beat the Cemetery of Ash, and you can buy that first soapstone from the old lady in the shrine for about 500 souls. You don't even have to enter an area open to online interactivity before this happens. Knights of Lair only gave you that soapstone after you completed the first real area of the game. So if you were playing the first Dark Souls online, you would have already seen other players' summon signs to familiarize yourself with being a host who needs help before the mechanic of being a summon was even presented to you in-game. And you probably got invaded too. It was kind of a rough lesson on how that whole process worked. So let's recap. So it's easy to commit to being a White Phantom, but it can be harder to be an effective ally. Okay? Hosts will be choosy, if they can. If they see your shade and you look like a pleb, they might only choose you for lack of more impressive signs. So first rule, look helpful. Easy. Now second, actually be helpful. Now that's not so easy. Now this next point I'm going to say might sound sort of weird, but sometimes being the best summon doesn't necessarily mean you gotta be the best fighter. Sometimes pointing out a good gameplay mechanic or tip, it will make you a more worthwhile ally. Okay, so right here on the screen, this is my lowly wretch. He is soul level 13. He has no reinforced equipment to speak of. I made him for the sole purpose of aiding in the high wall of Lothric, and a lot of the reasons why he's so scaled back is because matchmaking. I had to beat the game at this level with no reinforcements, which is pretty tough but doable. You can see by my Estus allotment and reinforcement strength at the bottom of the screen there to kind of prove it. A lot of invaders will play and beat the game this way and invade in here with their dark hands and their Dragon Slayer axes. When they do come in, they have to contend with me. I'm usually pretty formidable since I'm not a password ally. But for the most part, this was a pretty laid-back character build. I try not to use any weapons or equipment that the hosts themselves can't acquire pretty early at this rate or within this area itself, or maybe with a quick purchase from Grey Rat. I did this intentionally. I want the host to take point when I'm playing as this character, where on occasion I'll show them maybe little things in the level. It does nothing beneficial for me to steamroll the whole level for them. There's a lot of little teaching tidbits in the High Wall of Lothric, and if you're ever in the position where you're helping a new player in this manner, just remember that sometimes letting a host figure things out on their own and make mistakes is way more important than just beating the level for them. Now, a good example, of course, and I see this a lot because I will often help hosts that have other summons in this area. A lot of players do the same thing, but they are more likely to just murk the whole level for the host. A good example is the pus of men enemies that populate the area. I see a lot of phantoms come in and just run up to these hollows that turn into them and beat them to a pulp before they have a chance to transform. And for a new player, this sort of robs them of a very important experience. They don't get to fight the pus of men directly. They don't learn about the whole fire mechanic that can be used against them, and more importantly, these guys drop Embers and a Titanite the first time you beat them, guaranteed. So if there's two of them on the level, that's two important things you're going to be taking away from the player if you just run up and do that sort of thing. Now, if you get to experience a situation where a host seems pretty adept at the game, or maybe they're a returning player, you can tell the difference between these people, so you don't always have to hold back. You can tell by the mannerisms if the player is, looking at certain items and stopping to read the lore or equipping something. You can kind of tell they are probably picking it up for the first time, and you know the difference between those players. Just like Blue Sentinels and Dark Moons, there's a difference between White and Gold Spirits. In the first Dark Souls, you had to contend with the Hellkite Dragon and the Undead Parish before you even earned the right to be a Warrior of Sunlight. Players would notice the allure of your Golden Sign over the others, not only because of its radiance, but because every Souls player knew that a Sunbro was a dedicated cooperator. They probably had a better sense of the game as well as general co-op experience, and by all accounts, they would probably make for a more dependable ally. This is true for Dark Souls 2, it's true for Dark Souls 3. Now, this isn't always the case. You're always going to run into different types of players, and not all of them are good. But remember, there's certain expectations when you're a Gold Phantom, and you have to live up to it. People will summon you expecting a certain type of behavior and skill level. And also remember, every time you're summoned and you beat a boss, everyone in the questing party will receive a Sunlight Medal for accomplishing the task. So a lot of players will summon you just for that reason. They want to get their medal, or they want to rank up with the Covenant themselves. So be ready to throw down. That's the main thing I want to tell you. If you're going to be a Sunbro, be prepared. Now this right here is my Yellow Jester. He's my dedicated Gold Spirit. I assist people in the Ring City at Soul Level 125. At this level, the pretext of assistance is somewhat more deliberate. My hosts are high level. They're usually just looking to run the Ring City area for items and boss fights, and usually I run into a lot of dried finger sessions too. This cooperation may not hinge on necessity, but it can still be pretty jolly. I built this Jester for survivability. I have the Parting Flame there on my left hand, and you can't see it, but the offhand for that is the Parrying Dagger infused with a Simple Gem. So I can kind of marathon the whole area without worrying about my Estus. I can basically refill it indefinitely. He's also equipped very well for the area. I've got the Cat Ring, the Evil Eye Ring. I can swap out Abyss slaying weapons on the fly. I usually get someone to dispatch Midir more often than not, just because so many players still have issues with this boss. But I'm quite adept at fighting him, and I'm usually the last phantom standing if I don't say so myself. But yeah, for the most part, as a summoned spirit, you're going to be seeing more online interaction than anything else. So you have lots of opportunities to improve, and have fun, enjoy, and be a good summon. That's all I got, guys.